Well, we've been covering a very important story on this show, which is the coming invasion. I'm calling it invasion of Haiti by U.S. military forces. Then last night we saw some major movements in that regard. The United States Coast Guard sending one of its largest gunships to start patrolling off the coast of Haiti near Port-au-Prince. The United States has canceled visas as well. It looks like things are only getting worse. We're entering a heated situation right now. We want to bring in independent journalist Dan Cohen, who's been following the story from the very beginning. He's been doing some excellent journalism on this, and we'd like to welcome back to the show. Dan, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, Clayton.
Absolutely. So we were talking last night. It looks like things are starting to ratchet up, and these, of course, this is what you've been following and saying this was about to happen. It looks like last night things started happening. So what is the very latest?
Well, I think you're right to call it an invasion rather than the nice euphemism of military intervention, which sounds so much more palatable. And right now, Brian Nichols, the top State Department official for the Western Hemisphere, and figures from the Pentagon, top Southcom commander, are in Haiti meeting with the interim prime minister, Ariel Henry, as well as figures from the opposition group that is very close to Washington called the Montana Accord. And they're basically figuring out how they can put down this protest movement. And their main concern is the blockade on the fuel terminal where Haiti gets 80% of its fuel. And that's blockaded by an armed group called the G9, led by Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier. This guy is the number one target of the United States. And if there is any military invasion, intervention, call it what you will, this guy's the target. The G9 is the target. If you look at the readout from the State Department, they're careful not to say his name, but they say the blockade of the fuel terminal. And they've sent, as you said, a Coast Guard ship, which is under the auspices of the Department of Homeland Security. And, so it makes me wonder, how is Haiti part of the homeland of the United States? Where does the homeland start and end? I don't know exactly.
It extends very far. I mean, we had U.S. National Guard deployments from Wisconsin going to Africa last week. So, you know, there is no border to the United States, right?
Right, exactly. It's all the U.S.'s backyard, Latin America, the Caribbean.
Right.
So they send this Coast Guard ship, which is military. It's not part of the Pentagon. It's part of Department of Homeland Security. And this thing has basically small rafts that move very quickly and are equipped with machine guns that it can deploy. And those are exactly the kind of boats that you would want for some kind of special covert operation, which is exactly what the U.S. is angling for in Haiti. So, this is classic gunboat diplomacy, where you send the diplomats down there to talk to the government, and at the same time, you kind of have the stick waiting in the water, ready for action, and it might portend something else. So, I'm not saying that Coast Guard ship is directly going to, launch an attack, but it obviously portends something greater. And the U.S. said that it deployed the ship as a sign of its resolve. So, I think that really says everything about its intentions.
Let's talk about these oil, that blockade specifically. What do you know about that?
So, right in the heart of Port-au-Prince on the coast is the Varot gas terminal, and it is Haiti's lifeline of fuel to the outside world, where it receives 80% of its fuel. So if that thing is blockaded, as it currently is, it brings the country to a standstill.
Who's blockading it? I'm sorry.
And so, sure. So there's an armed group called the Revolutionary Forces of the G9 Family and Allies, and it's led by a former cop turned revolutionary named Jimmy Cherizier, and his demand is for Ariel Henry to step down and to have for the country to improve, to basically have leadership that will address the needs of the poor masses that are living in the shanty towns, in the slums, right next to that gas terminal. So, you have the worst poverty in the Western Hemisphere. You have a cholera outbreak right now as a result of it. And their demands to end this blockade are, well, we need clean water, we need education, we need housing, all the basic things that people need to live. And Haiti's ruling class, which is tied to the U.S., won't allow them to have. So that's what this is fundamentally about. And if you look at, the U.S. and its tools in Haiti are very concerned about this fuel blockade, and they want to lift it, but they don't want to address anything that the people are demanding. And the masses, the people out protesting from the slums, they're not saying lift the fuel blockade. They're saying no foreign intervention and down with Ariel Henry. That's their demand.
So that's very interesting. So we want to get rid of this interim prime minister who's basically a puppet, and we want to have our autonomy, no U.S. boots on the ground. And we want to have a new government put in place is essentially what they're asking for. And of course, it doesn't appear that the West is ready to give that to them. In fact, it seems like the West is fully in support of Henry as the interim prime minister. Am I wrong about that?
Not exactly. Basically, the U.S.'s thing is, they know Ariel Henry is a liability because he's totally seen as a puppet of the United States, and correctly so. So there's an opposition group that the U.S. is also meeting with that has kind of a prettier face. They call it Haitian-led. It's called the Montana Accord. It's named for the fancy hotel that it was signed in. And it's a bunch of figures who are also tied to the U.S. So the U.S. is saying, taking these two groups, the Montana Accord and Ariel Henry, and just trying to bang them together to make an agreement so then they can have, some kind of transition government with elections. But again, that's not actually going to do anything for people in Haiti who are suffering under their boot. So that's the U.S.'s tactic, is to get these groups together.
And you may have mentioned this in passing, but what is the overall mood or sentiment regarding the Montana Accord among the Haitian people? Are they aware deeply of it, or are they in support of it, or they see it as an extension of U.S. interventionism?
Right. I mean, I think it's clear to most Haitians who are out protesting that the Montana Accord is just another group of elites that don't represent their interests at all, and like Ariel Henry, are completely tied to the United States. So I don't see any signs in any of these protests saying we support the Montana Accord or anything else. But the signs are demanding those improvements in quality of life and just basic infrastructure that Montana is not gonna provide. The overall message you're seeing from the protests is down with Ariel Henry because he's the interim prime minister, and also no to U.S. military intervention. But there's no way that Montana has popular support. It's really just kind of lipstick on a pig.
When you see these troop movements, so we see the gunship, the Coast Guard gunship, how much bigger do you think it's going to get from there? Are we talking thousands of American forces, UN peacekeeping forces under the auspices of peacekeeping? Where do you see, and how big do you think that this will get?
Well, the U.S. would love to have the UN deploy, so-called peacekeepers as it did in previous occupations, but Russia and China have essentially they will block that, because it's not the Russia and China of 2003, 2004 that were much more willing to go along with U.S. machinations. So the U.S. is looking for another way to do it. There's talk about through the Organization of American States, which is really just a tool of the United States. And the U.S.'s other plot is through the Global Fragility Act, which is a 2019 piece of legislation that basically calls for military special operations to go into so-called fragile countries like Haiti, being the test case for this legislation, and carry out what they call small footprint operations, hit squads, black ops, covert ops. So the U.S. wants to have as small of a footprint as possible, so it doesn't get these mass protests against them, because the U.S. knows that foreign intervention is extremely unpopular in Haiti. That's why they're going with, this whole Haitian-led mantra of the Montana Accord. That's why they're saying, it's humanitarian intervention, and the U.S. is desperate for its puppets to be effective, so it's not at the forefront. So last case, I think last resort is that the U.S. deploys a significant amount of its own troops. It's really looking for a proxy to do the job.
As always, exactly. A couple of more questions I had for you. One, the cynical nature of me, knowing these politicians and knowing the elites who in Washington and New York and so forth in the financial sector, who love going down to the Dominican Republic, and they love buying up beachfront property there. They love the resorts, the all-inclusive resorts in the Dominican Republic and so forth. So what sort of a humanitarian crisis are we seeing that could potentially or is already spilling over into the Dominican Republic and specifically into the areas where these Washington elites would have a problem going on vacation?
Yeah, there is a humanitarian crisis in Haiti, a huge amount of migration coming into the Dominican Republic, and the Dominican leadership, after meeting with Kamala Harris and Samantha Power and a bunch of top figures in Congress, they deployed military assets to the border with Haiti because of course they share an island, and the president of the Dominican Republic and his top diplomat have called for military intervention in Haiti to put down this uprising, to, like you said, an invasion, mm-hmm. to put down this uprising and, return what they call stability, kind of the status quo. So, the idea of a popular revolution and this puppet government collapsing in Haiti is a major threat to Washington and elite interests in the Dominican Republic, and then even the region. Haiti, as small as it is is a major player kind of on the geopolitical chessboard. So
right.
It's like if one part goes, then the rest of them are threatened too. So the Dominican Republic is very much a front to, and always has been, to prevent revolution in Haiti.
And so you had a chance to speak with a congressman last night by chance who has an interesting position on this. Can you tell us about your confrontation with a member of Congress on his Haitian position last night?
Yeah, so, it's actually the second time I've had a chance to interface with Congressman Andy Levin of Michigan in recent weeks. I saw him at a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing, and, he was pretty dismissive to what I was saying. I asked him about military intervention and the G9, which is blockading this, and he said those guys are terrorists, and, so that's obvious language that sort of intimates that the U.S. has to, take them out. And then I saw him last night at Whole Foods here in Washington, D.C. shopping. And I approached him, casually and politely. And I explained to him that, the figures that he is promoting in the Montana Accord, specifically Magali Como-Denis, its leader, was involved in the 2004 U.S. coup against President Aristide, who's Haiti's most popular president ever. And so he wants to say Ariel Henry, the interim prime minister, is so bad. Well, Ariel Henry was involved in the coup, and so was the leader of the Montana Accord. So basically, you have two U.S. puppets, and this is just an excuse for further U.S. intervention in Haiti. And I offered to brief him on what I know about the situation based on my reporting and my investigations. And he just, dismissed me and kind of sneered and hurried away. So, these are like the enlightened liberals that want to think they know what's best for Haiti, but they're the most imperialist of all.
Right. Yeah. He just throws out the talking points. Oh, they're terrorists blocking the oil fields. They're terrorists in the blockade, and what they, again, just parroting what comes right from Nancy Pelosi's office on this. Dan, always great to see you. Where can people learn out more about your journalism and what you're currently covering?
Well, I have a new documentary coming out soon called Another Vision that gives the background to this armed revolutionary movement that is blockading the fuel terminal right now. We'll have a release date on that shortly, and I'll be imminently launching my own media outlet called Uncaptured Media. And in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at DanCohen3000 and check out my Substack, dancohen3000.substack.com, where I'll have a new investigation on Haiti coming out.
Well, keep us informed. We will love to have you back on here. And thank you for your fantastic work on Haiti and beyond. Dan, great to see you as always.
Thanks a lot, Clayton.
Thanks to Dan. And so Chris in the chat just said, Clayton, stop saying the West. We all know that the West means the United States. And that's a great point. However, when we talk about Ukraine, the West includes UK, it includes Europe, it includes the United States. And for Haiti, yes, it's including Canada. It includes the United States. But in the case of Ukraine, we're talking about the West. We're talking about the UK going in and being the one who muscled away peace agreements, right?
Sure. And the European Union today deciding that, or this week discussing whether or not individual bloc members can negotiate their own gas now. Mm-hmm. They're saying, we can't have each member out for themselves. We have to be united on this sanction front. We have to be united on who we punish. So we think that, countries shouldn't be able to bid each other up for oil.
Right.
Now they have to go and buy oil together. This is a Western-led political crisis.
Absolutely.